Friends, I want to share with you an interesting fragment from a video that is rapidly gaining popularity on American YouTube. It captures the performance of famous bloggers and political activists Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk. At a meeting with students, they had to literally smash the arguments of a young American who decided to criticize their position on the well-known conflict in Eastern Europe. The students said that Russian policy is aggressive and that the United States is doing the right thing by supporting one of the countries in this conflict and spending tens of billions of dollars on it. However, Owens and Kirk had a completely different point of view, and they literally rolled over his arguments. To begin with, I will introduce you to the main characters of this issue. Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk are well-known American public figures, bloggers, and conservative activists who actively advocate for traditional values and criticize the left liberal agenda. Candace Owens is a popular writer, political commentator, and presenter, known for her harsh statements on racial politics, feminism, and the rainbow agenda. Charlie Kirk is the founder and president of Turning Point USA, an organization that promotes conservative ideas among American college students. Together, they form a powerful duo that skillfully combines rhetoric and facts, destroying liberal myths and raising issues that are often hushed up in mainstream American politics. Friends, it is really rare to meet sober-minded Americans who are able to reason logically and constructively. You will definitely get tremendous pleasure from their performance. But before showing this amazing dialogue at the university, I want to say a few words about what is happening in world politics. It is curious that people are gradually starting to appear in the United States who openly say that the so-called American leadership, which is constantly being announced in the White House, actually brings much more problems than benefits. This is especially noticeable against the background of the fact that the United States itself is not in the best shape right now. It is very difficult to establish global trends and talk about leadership when an attempt is made on one of the presidential candidates, and the investigation still cannot establish who did it and why. How can we talk about leadership when the country's national debt has reached $35 trillion and continues to grow every month? How can you be a leader when American cities, which were a symbol of the so-called American dream, are experiencing obvious decline? The streets of many cities have become unsafe, the crime rate is rising, and the southern border of the country has turned into a checkpoint. And this is without taking into account the rosy agenda, which causes fierce disputes within the country and literally divides it into two parts. Against this background, it is especially appropriate to show you the debate that recently took place at one of the universities in the United States. The students' question concerned a country with which Russia is currently in conflict. Here is the first part of this fascinating dialogue. Student: hello. I do not agree with your position on a well-known country. As far as I understand, you think that supporting this country is too expensive and that the United States should not spend money on it. Moreover, you believe that this is not our business at all. But I don't agree with that. First of all, I think it's morally right to help. Secondly, from the point of view of national interests, the money invested helped weaken Russia in the international arena. We used to consider Russia a great power, but now it is disgraced. Besides, Western solidarity is important, especially considering that China has set its sights on Taiwan. We must demonstrate to the whole world that we are united, that we are capable of defending ourselves, and that neither Russia nor China can just take over neighboring countries. Candace Owens takes the floor and answers, "So we are spending trillions of dollars to shame Russia. Is this our goal? Do you seriously think that we should allocate billions, which eventually disappear into nowhere, in order to say, look, Putin is disgraced? If by shame you mean his handshakes with Xi Jinping or their plans for the coming decades, then you clearly don't see the real picture. We are simply pushing Vladimir Putin into the arms of China. China is our main competitor, and now they are shaking hands and openly laughing at the West. This has never happened before. Why do they think we're a joke? Yes, because we ourselves give them a reason. We are fixated on gender issues and cannot even identify who a woman is. Hollywood considers it cool to invite the president of a famous country to the Grammy ceremony. This is a complete and utter joke." Next, Charlie Kirk adds, "First, if we talk about national interests, they relate only to what affects our country and affects us. But it's none of my damn business what's going on in Eastern Europe while real Americans are suffering here in the USA today. If you've noticed, we have a series of endless wars that we don't win. Do you want to talk about shame? Let's start by saying that we have left billions of dollars worth of military equipment in Afghanistan after decades of struggle. This is a real shame. It is also shameful that China met with the Taliban immediately after our withdrawal from Afghanistan and recognized their new government. Our sons and daughters died for what? What did we get in the end? And now it's the 20th anniversary of the invasion of Iraq. Do you want to talk about shame? Let's remember what we did in Iraq and around the world. For what? What do we have at the exit? Well, at least we disgraced a few people while our soldiers were dying. But this is not the best way of thinking. I'll tell you straight out, this is the worst way of thinking. We need to focus on solving the problems that we have in America. Do you want to talk about the invasion? Let's talk about what happens on our southern border every day. That's what we're talking about when we say America first. We have enough problems of our own to solve, and not a single cent should be sent abroad until we fix the situation here in the United States, end quote. Friends, before showing you another vivid episode in which Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens again brilliantly smeared an American student who dared to challenge their arguments, I would like to say a few words. Admittedly, the level of argumentation of this student is surprising. His statements, they say, "We must disgrace Putin" or "we need to show solidarity," sound too unfounded and devoid of any specifics. But let's turn to the facts to understand how far such statements are from the real picture. After almost 2 years, is it possible to say that Putin is disgraced? No. The Russian economy has not only not broken down under the weight of unprecedented 16,000 sanctions, but is showing strong growth dynamics. Moreover, Russia has overtaken Germany in terms of GDP. But it was Germany that was one of the key initiators of the sanctions policy. But what do we see today? Germany found itself in a deep economic crisis due to the loss of Russian energy resources. Once Europe's largest economy, Germany is projected to lose 20 to 30% of its economic potential. As for oil and gas, many believed that sanctions would destroy the Russian economy by halting energy exports. However, this logic did not take into account that Russia has long ceased to be a gas station country. Today, it is the world's largest exporter of agricultural products, in particular grain, on which not only Europe, but also the countries of the global south depend. In addition, Russia is a leader in innovative nuclear technologies and has a powerful military-industrial complex. Returning to energy resources, the attempt to squeeze Russia out of the market has had the opposite effect. Oil and gas prices rose sharply, which allowed Russia to quickly find new buyers such as India, China, and other countries. As a result, Russia continues to receive revenue from supplies, often even more than before the conflict, thanks to rising prices. Europe is now forced to purchase energy resources from intermediaries, for example, from India or the United States, with a margin of 2 to 3 times. Thus, loud statements about the shame of Russia sound naive against the background of real events. Now, friends, I suggest you evaluate for yourself how Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens put another opponent in place. Before moving on to the second part of the debate, where Charlie Kirk harshly refutes the arguments of an American student, it is worth thinking again. Is Putin really disgraced, as his opponents claim? Take, for example, the situation with BRICS. The West sought to isolate Russia from the global community, especially from the countries of the global South. However, instead of isolation, Russia has managed to strengthen ties with those states that support the ideas of a multipolar world, a more just international order and alternative financial institutions capable of challenging dominant structures focused on the interests of the collective West. Now let's move on to the words of Candace Owens. Here is a quote from her speech. I'll add one more thing. Just think about what I'm going to say now. A country that can't identify who a woman is shouldn't start a conflict. It's shameful. It's just shameful. If you have an internal crisis where you cannot agree on basic truths, then you are not ready for military conflicts. China writes articles in its newspapers mocking America. They literally say, the US doesn't even know which bathroom to go to. If you think that Russia is disgraced, you just don't notice what is happening in America. We are becoming a laughingstock. We are being ridiculed on the world stage. The tragic mistake of the United States is that we pushed Russia into the arms of China. We have built our geopolitical strategy incorrectly. It was a Cold War that we invented ourselves. We have made an enemy of Russia, although it could have been otherwise. Donald Trump understood this and correctly built relations with Russia. And now Russia and China have entered into an alliance that we ourselves helped create. The Chinese Communist Party is now gaining access to Russia's resources, of which it has more than it can use. This alliance threatens Western countries and America. We created this threat ourselves. And while we're arguing about which signs to put on the toilets, they just stopped taking us seriously. These words deserve attention, although not everything in them is indisputable. For example, Charlie's thesis that Russia is a gas station is certainly simplified. Russia has long proved that its economy is much more diversified. From agriculture to nuclear energy and the military-industrial complex, Russia plays a key role in many industries. Kirk also claims that China poses a threat, but this is a controversial statement. China is mainly engaged in domestic development and economic growth, without getting involved in international conflicts. Perhaps it's not the threat, but the competition. The United States is losing its economic leadership, and this process is inevitable. But it is difficult to disagree with Kirk's main thesis, that the United States itself pushed Russia towards China. Russia and China now have a unique, unprecedented strong relationship. Is this Russia's defeat? Rather the opposite. So, 2 years after the conflict began, Russia is not only not isolated, but has also strengthened its position on the world stage. The question is what lessons the United States and its allies will learn from this. And now I want to express my opinion. To be honest, I admire how Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk are able to sort out complex political issues while remaining adequate and logical. Their arguments are not only reasonable but also based on real facts, and not on emotions and cliches that their opponents so often use. I am impressed by how they clearly and easily explain why the United States should not deal with solving other people's problems while its own crises are accumulating inside the country. They remind us of the priority of national interests, and this is especially important in an era when it is popular to pretend that you can save the whole world by ignoring the devastation at home. I would especially like to note Charlie Kirk's position on the alliance between Russia and China. He correctly emphasizes that the aggressive policy of the United States towards Russia has only led to the strengthening of its relations with China, which in fact poses a great geopolitical threat to the West. Instead of playing these senseless sanctions wars, America could build a constructive dialogue and minimize the risks. I also agree with the criticism of American foreign policy, endless wars, huge debts, the decline of the country's authority on the world stage. Kirk and Owens speak openly about what many are afraid to even admit, and this makes their voice especially valuable. Their ability to show the hypocrisy of modern Western politics deserves special respect. Candace and Charlie draw attention to the fact that America, mired in disputes about gender issues and the struggle with its own citizens, is losing any moral right to teach other countries how to live. Their courage, intelligence, and willingness to challenge popular but groundless views make them the real heroes of the modern political scene. Thank you for writing comments and liking this issue. I wish you good health, friends. See you soon.